On Sunday, Ecuador and Peru opened polls for the rollout of presidential elections, while Bolivia will elect regional authorities. Venezuela secures over 11 million vaccines through the Covax initiative. In Myanmar, protesters take to the streets once more to demonstrate against the military junta and denounce all those killed by security forces. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm Gladys Quesada. Ecuador opened polls Sunday as citizens began choosing their next president, deciding between the candidate for the Union for Hope coalition, Andrés Arauz, and the conservative Guillermo Lasso to lead the country. The president of the National Electoral Council, CNE, Diana Atamaint, officially declared the elections opened and affirmed that after the closing time, results will begin to be announced, which will be estimated since the official results will be made known in due time. Arauz arrives to the runoff after having won comfortably the first round, with almost 33% of the vote preference. In addition, most polls place him as the winner of this second round. A total of 294 international observers will be present to ensure the transparency of the process, representing several international organizations. Atamaint, during the opening of the ballot to elect President of Ecuador, pointed out that exit polls are not official results. The official winner will be proclaimed once the last vote has been counted, the official said.
Candidates, the citizens, the political organizations and the media to wait for the official results that, as the electoral authority, we will deliver to the country. The official winner will be announced once the last vote is counted.
The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Ralph Gonsalves, has said that the researchers are currently analyzing samples of the volcanic ash to determine how long La Soufrière is likely to keep erupting. As the Prime Minister revised the emergency situation on the ground, he also said it will take an enormous amount of work to clean up all the ash, which could become unsafe if rain falls on it.
13 million cubic meters of material which had formed the dome approximately in the volume, which has been blown away. And new material is also coming up from in the volcano. And fortunately, a lot of the material has gone to the sea, but a lot is here and a lot. I was just talking to Myanmar, the PM of Barbados, and a lot has reached Barbados. And we don't know how long this spewing is going to take place. The seismologists don't know, in fact, what the work they're doing. They're collecting samples. And through their testing, they're going to be able to give us some indication as to what do they think. Of course, it's not a precise science when you're doing these prognoses. This cleaning up is going to be massive, as you can see already. This is not. Remember this. The weight of this and the nature of this. Mashing up houses already, you know. Crashing the roofs, crashing the windows and.
Parts of the Caribbean island of Barbados are covered in ash coming from the La Soufrière volcano, located some 160 kilometers west, after a series of eruptions on Friday from a volcano that had been quiet for decades. Barbados Meteorological Office issued a volcanic ash warning for Barbados on Saturday due to a thick plume of ash affecting the island from La Soufrière volcano. Ash covered much of the Caribbean island of St. Vincent on Saturday, on the sketch of the sulfur filled the air after a series of eruptions. The whitish powder blocked sunlight, covered roads, homes and buildings after the powerful blast from the volcano La Soufrière that began Friday and continued into the night. In St. Vincent and the Grenadines, visibility in some areas was extremely limited, while in the capital city Kingstown on the south of the island, the ash caused a thin haze of dust. Prime Minister Ralph Gonsalves said Saturday that water has been cut off in most areas and the country's airspace is closed because of the ash. Around 3,000 people spent the night in shelters. The government of Venezuela has sent 20 tons of humanitarian aid to St. Vincent and the Grenadines following the eruption of La Soufrière volcano. Sent in a military ship, the ship included food, water, among other emergency supplies. A team of 15 Venezuelan risk experts were also sent to aid the Caribbean nation in search and rescue efforts. The team will also help with hospital work, logistics and communications as St. Vincent braces itself for further eruptions and tremors.
From the moment news about the eruption of the volcano reached us, our President and Commander-in-Chief Nicolás Maduro has offered Venezuela's unconditional support for St. Vincent and the Grenadines. We began with deploying the Simón Bolívar Humanitarian Task Force for the aid mission. Our President has immediately offered all the support needed for St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
We'll go now to a short break. Follow us on Twitter at TeleSUR English and Gladys TeleSUR. Welcome back to From the South. Venezuela's Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has announced that the government paid around $64 million to gain access to over 11,374,000 vaccines through the Covax initiative. This is about the 50% of vaccines allocated for Venezuela through the initiative and will allow the vaccination of about 20% of Venezuela's population.
Venezuela have managed to secure funds for about 50% of vaccine allocated to us through the Covax initiative, thanks to international, diplomatic, and legal negotiations. As you might know, the Covax initiative needs some advance payment, and the Venezuelan government has now secured the double of the minimum necessary prepayment. We have deposited around 59.2 million Swiss francs to the designated Covax account. This means that the Covax initiative has received an equivalent of $64 million in order to secure the vaccination of the Venezuelan people. The other $60 million requested by the Covax initiative are guaranteed as well, and when it is required, our government will transfer this amount as well.
In Colombia, Bogotá's Mayor Claudia López has ordered a strict lockdown in the capital as it battles a third wave of the pandemic. 8 million inhabitants of Bogotá have been put under strict lockdown for the weekend, with only essential activities being permitted. The measures are in addition to night curfews imposed by the government that covers 7 million people in the cities of Medellín, Cali, Barranquilla, and Santa Marta, where the health system is overwhelmed by the virus. However, infections and fatalities have continued to rise, and there is concern about the effect of the recent Easter holidays. Colombia has so far administered at least 1 dose of COVID-19 vaccine to 2.4 million of its 50 million inhabitants.
For us medical staff, a strict lockdown is very helpful because it reduces patient overcrowding and helps us all to take care of each other.
I don't do anything locked up at home. What happens is that I feel sick with anxiety because I can't afford to pay the rent, utilities and food. I have no other to provide for me. The government keeps saying that they are helping, but I've never received any help at all.
This Sunday, Iraq received its first shipment of Pfizer vaccines. The shipment arrived days after the country recorded its highest daily number of COVID-19 infections since the start of the pandemic. Iraq recorded more than 800 new confirmed cases within a 24-hour period on Wednesday, the highest figure since the onset of the pandemic last year. The health ministry is distributing the jabs to hospitals in Baghdad and to local governments. Many people expect that the arrival of the vaccines will speed up a lagging inoculation campaign. In Iran, the government has enforced a 10-day lockdown as fourth wave of the coronavirus is spreading across the country. Authorities ordered the closure of all parks, restaurants, beauty salons, malls and bookstores in 257 cities. Over 85% of the country is in designated red or orange zone, with the toughest restrictions in place. The country is grappling with a spike following the Persian New Year, the nation's biggest holiday, which drove millions to travel to the Caspian coast and other popular vacation spots, park markets and congregate in homes for parties in defiance of the government health guidelines. Iranian officials said the daily death toll from COVID-19 rose by 155, putting the country's total at over 64,000 as of Friday. In the United States, at least one person has died and 7 got injured in the state of Louisiana after severe storms ripped across the region. Large hail damaged cars in Texas and Alabama. Roads were flooded also in Mississippi, and a tornado left behind piles of debris in Panhandle, Florida, where also several other homes were damaged, with most of the destruction being done in the rural community of Palmero. Heavy rains and flash floods were also expected, and according to the forecasters, the storm threat is expected to decrease by late Saturday. Hundreds of protesters in Australia have marched through Sydney as part of a national day of action, calling for an end to Indigenous citizens' deaths in custody. Relatives of Indigenous Australians who have died in custody spoke at the rally, including Kia Paten, whose uncle Eddie Murray was found hanging in his cell 40 years ago, and also Neoka Chatfield, whose son died in a hospital after he was found unconscious in his cell at a correctional facility in 2017. The protests come ahead of the 30th anniversary of a report by the Royal Commission into Aboriginal Deaths in Custody, handed down a report, few of whose recommendations have since been instituted.
We've had enough conversation with these dug-eyes. Time for action now. Time to go walkabout. Time to start educating our kids. Time to start rising up, starting to take our land back, taking authority back, taking our communities back, taking our kids back, bringing them home, making sure that they're safe.
Today is 30 years into the Royal Commission and they still have not got their justice. This year marks 40 years since my uncle Eddie's life has been taken from him, and we still have not seen our justice. So we will continue to get up here and tell our story over and over and over again until you get sick of us, because you know what? We're not going nowhere!
Thousands of protesters in Serbia have rallied in the capital Belgrade to demand better protection of the environment. Thousands of people gathered outside the Serbian parliament building for the so-called ecological uprising against what organizers said is a widespread environmental devastation. Protesters carried banners reading "Cut corruption and crime, not forest," or "Water is life," and "Plant a tree," referring to shrinking green areas in the cities, particularly in Belgrade, where huge concrete residential areas have expanded in recent years. Serbia, which aspires to join the European Union, has faced several problems that include poor garbage management and high air pollution caused by the use of poor quality coal and other pollutants. And we have more news after one last break. Stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. In Myanmar, protesters splashed red paint on the street in Yangon on Sunday, symbolizing the bloodshed by demonstrators since security forces began a lethal crackdown to suppress their movement. Bystanders clapped and took leaflets from them, and the small group walked through the city's tramway, the area carrying a banner denouncing the military takeover at the beginning of February. The development came after at least 82 people were killed on Friday in the city of Bago, according to reports from the Assistance Association for Political Prisoners, an organization that keeps track on casualties. It was the biggest one-day deal toll for a single city since March 14, when just over 100 people were killed in Yangon. According to the organization, at least 700 protesters and bystanders have been killed by security forces since the army's takeover. Djibouti's veteran ruler Ismail Omar Guelleh was re-elected for a fifth term as president with more than 98% of the vote, according to provisional results announced early Saturday. Some 215,000 citizens were registered to vote, with polling stations opening early across the nation, which overlooks one of the world's busiest trade routes between Africa and the Arabian Peninsula. Election observers said the process ran smoothly. Counting started shortly after polling stations closed around 7 p.m. President Ismail Omar Guelleh has ruled the country for the past 22 years and has clinched at least 75% of the vote in every presidential election he has contested. The Tunisian president has visited Egypt's capital, Cairo, to meet his counterpart, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, for talks on the Libyan conflict. Following the meeting, President el-Sisi said Egypt and Tunisia are going to provide all the support necessary for Libya to hold general elections in December. The two leaders also discussed about the massive dam that Ethiopia is building on the Nile River's main tributary. The Tunisian president has promised to back Egypt's position on the dam construction dispute.
We also discussed, me and my brother, Kais Saed, the developments of the Libyan crisis, and we confirmed that an Arab role must be activated towards this crisis, and we welcome what was recently reached, forming the executive authority in Libya, and we also confirmed that we ensure to provide all kind of support to enable them their role during the transitional period to hold the election in December this year.
Iran has started its advanced uranium enrichment centrifuges as the country marks its National Nuclear Technology Day. President Hassan Rouhani inaugurated this technological project at the uranium enrichment plant in a ceremony. The move follows an opening round of talks in Vienna on Tuesday with representatives of the remaining parties to the nuclear deal on bringing the United States back into it. All sides said the talks, in which Washington is not participating directly but has the European Union as intermediary, had got off to a good start. Iran has demanded that the United States first lift all sanctions imposed by Trump, which included a unilateral ban on its oil exports, before it falls back in line with obligations it suspended. At least 7 people have been killed after an earthquake hit Indonesia's Java Island. The 6.0 magnitude quake struck offshore about 45 kilometers southwest of Malang City in East Java, damaging hundreds of homes, schools and government offices. Residents of surrounding communities have been evacuated to safety. Indonesia has been experiencing frequent quakes and volcanic eruptions due to its position on the Pacific Ring of Fire, an arc of intense seismic activity. In 2004, Indonesia experienced one of its deadliest earthquakes off the coast of Sumatra, leaving 220,000 dead throughout the region.
We were very shocked. The whole house was shaking. I was sitting and it felt like I was thrown up from the chair. I was running away, but then I remembered my elder relative, so I got back and dragged her out of the house in anticipation of aftershocks.
And we have come to the end of this news brief, but remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.